Hello, everyone. Good morning. I feel like I've got a tiny bit of a tough crowd as people need their coffees, but I think I can keep going. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me, and good morning to all of you esteemed guests. Thank you, Dr. Glenda, for inviting me to speak. It's actually my first time to be with you here at Spring Rain Global Conference. And just for the last couple of hours, I think there's so many leaders from philanthropy and social impact and the community development ecosystem here. So I'm really, really honored to be with you and to learn from your experiences as well. I'm especially glad that I'm going after Father Zah and Dr. Glenda, because I think they've done an excellent job to outline global trends and the philanthropy landscape. So that gives a frame to some of the things that I'm going to say. My name is Hannah Maran. I lead the philanthropy team for the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC. This is a 160-year-old humanitarian organization with headquarters in Geneva. And we work closely with the Red Cross or Red Crescent societies around the world, which some of you may be familiar with. But the ICRC's specific mandate is to assist those caught in conflict and violence. Father Zah earlier talked about conflict. Around the world today, we count over 120 active conflicts. Some of the more visible ones are the ones you see on your screens quite often. That could be Gaza, that could be Syria, and close in the region, Myanmar. But some of the more invisible ones, Yemen, South Sudan, these places that hardly get any airtime, these are the places that my colleagues and I work for and within. Our principle is neutrality. We don't take sides, and we work urgently to assist in the basics of life. That's water, shelter, food, medical care. We're there in times of emergency, and we stay on, trying to invest in long-term solutions to rebuild communities long after conflict has subsided. So that's the organization I work for. But what is my role? My role is to engage philanthropists, corporates, and foundations in the region who want to partner with the Red Cross and walk alongside those caught in conflict and violence. I've had the privilege of serving in international roles with the ICRC and the United Nations for over 10 years now, but my roots are here in Asia. I'm Malaysian, and I was raised between Kuala Lumpur and the rural highlands of Sarawak and Malaysian Borneo. So when Dr. Glenda asked me to speak about philanthropy in times of crisis, adapting strategies to address urgent needs, I thought I might do this drawing on my experience as a philanthropy professional working for a global humanitarian organization, but also as someone from the region and working to engage with Asian philanthropy. So first, what I'd like to do is provide the context for the term crisis and the potential for private philanthropy to respond. Second, I'll share some thoughts about how we might address urgent needs in times of crisis. Then I'll share a quick thought on Asian philanthropy and its potential to usher in global solutions. And finally, I'll close with a summary. Does that sound okay with you? All right, super. Good. So let's talk about the context. Where do we find ourselves today? In recent years, we've witnessed crisis upon crisis. Our world has really changed. We no longer deal with crisis and urgent needs in our own communities. Today, a crisis far away from home will have ripple effects in our own communities. Take the case of the war in Ukraine, which has caused the costs of food and fuel to surge. COVID-19 also added more pressure to healthcare and socioeconomic systems in our own communities. Climate change and resource scarcity drive and escalate crisis, and we see the impact of all these in our everyday lives. In the cost of food, the cost of lighting our homes, we see it even in the conversations that we have around our family dinner tables. Our world is more interconnected than ever. In all these, we've seen also the growth in philanthropy in responding to crisis. In Asia Pacific, we saw a significant outpouring of philanthropic support in response to Typhoon Yolanda in the Philippines, to the Japan earthquake and tsunami. And in 2020, there was the watershed moment for philanthropy. The COVID-19 pandemic sparked an unprecedented philanthropic response around the world. Some $20 billion was committed in 2 years, by one account, towards key areas of research and recovery. And since then, we've seen accelerated giving towards many crises, the earthquakes in Syria and Turkey, and more recently, the crisis in Gaza. So in crises like these, or natural disasters, millions can be uprooted or forced to flee to other cities and countries. The speed at which these crises unfold is exactly why the striking feature of philanthropy in times of crisis is the scale of capital being committed and the need for speed and efficiency if the response is to be impactful to mitigate human suffering. But in practice, speed and efficiency is not always straightforward. For you funders in the room, you're faced with the challenge of needing to give swiftly to meet urgent needs to affected communities, while needing to be strategic about fund allocation to ensure the right needs are being met and your support can be sustained. To the responding organizations in the room, on the other hand, you're faced with needing to deliver and scale up responses in contexts that are fast-moving, volatile, while also trying to ensure good stewardship and accountability of resources. So how can these elements work together in practice, and what lessons emerge in navigating the complexities of philanthropy in crisis? I thought I might share with you 5 perspectives that I have seen as essential for effective and strategic philanthropy in times of crisis. I'll focus on traditional philanthropy and partnerships with the private sector, as that's what I know best. I won't be covering blended financing instruments or social enterprise, as I know a few speakers in the agenda will cover this in depth today and tomorrow. All right, so number 1, relationships need to be in place to respond to urgent needs. In a humanitarian crisis, as in any crisis, you'll very quickly find out the quality of your relationships. And these will need to be built and nurtured over time. When I say relationships, this includes the relationships with the communities on the ground, which will crucially inform your understanding of local needs. I also mean relationships in place with your local authorities, as this will determine access to and coordination into affected areas. And importantly, donor relationships need to be in place. Essentially, this is a network of support available to you and who trust you as their partner of choice. Trust and transparency cultivated over time ensures quicker disbursement of funds during crisis, and donors are more likely to consider flexible funding, that is, empowering your organization to optimize resources and adapt to evolving needs. I know there's a panel later on trust-based philanthropy that will explore exactly this. Now let me share an example about relationships. In 2022, when the Ukraine conflict escalated and humanitarian needs increased exponentially, the ICRC was able to rapidly scale up humanitarian response and deliver assistance to the thousands needing help, as we had been in Ukraine at the time for 8 years. These were existing relationships with local communities, together with the Ukrainian Red Cross, relationships in place with the relevant authorities, and also we could count on the long-term relationships with donors to step up quickly and come alongside with additional support. I have used ICRC as an example now because I know this best, but I'm sure in this room you all have experience of this from your own organizations and how you leveraged your trusted relationships in times of crisis. Number 2, preparation for impact is crucial to be able to respond to crisis. On the part of the donor, you would have needed to identify and vetted the responding organizations and keep yourself updated with the regulatory environment, or work with an intermediary who has already done this vetting for you. On the part of the responding organization, due diligence policies and fundraising infrastructure will need to be well established and stress tested for a rapid response. For example, the responding organization may want to invest in protocols that define levels of crisis or emergency and the various activations that should follow in the next set milestones. For example, the next 2 hours, the next 12 hours, the next 24 hours. And the various teams that deliver these responses, for example, communications, fundraising, or operations, they should be involved and committed to the emergency protocol so each can deliver their part in the crisis response. And number 3, the best solutions are sometimes the ones that are simple, affordable, and fit for purpose. We all love innovation, we all love cutting-edge technologies, and yet in times of crisis, particularly in low-resource environments, the best solutions are the ones that are simple, affordable, and do the job. Let me bring the example of our programs in Cambodia, a country not too far from here, a country that bears the scars of 3 decades of war, and actually has the highest rate of most amputees per capita. Some 1 in 275 people have lost a limb. Our work in Cambodia involves physical rehabilitation services, that is, developing tailored prosthetics for those who have lost limbs to mines or weapon wounds. Our devices are plastic. They're affordable compared to other materials and can be recycled up to 7 times. They are sturdy, so the patients, who are largely farmers, can continue to work in their wet paddy fields, can continue with their livelihoods. The technology also is sustained 100% by local technicians who have been trained and can develop and fit the prosthetics. Basic repairs can also be done by the local bicycle repairman, saving travel time required from the rural areas to the city, and this would ensure minimal disruption to their livelihoods. So really, a world away from high-tech. Of course, this doesn't mean we should always go with simple. In our case, we also deploy cutting-edge technologies, for example, sophisticated drones that can help detect mines and prevent limb amputation altogether. But at times, simple, affordable, and fit for purpose is what works best, and we should be open to that. Number 4, and I know Dr. Glenda has mentioned this, collaboration is crucial to solve the complex issues of our time. Collaborative initiatives that pool expertise, funds, and technology often lead to more impactful solutions than isolated events. For example, the Global Vaccine Alliance, or Gavi, has successfully improved vaccination rates and reduced child mortality by leveraging partnerships between governments, NGOs, and private companies. And here in Asia, we see the exciting development of multiple ecosystems of collaboration across the full continuum of giving. Today, we're all here as part of the Spring Rain global community, and by being here, all of you are contributing to an ecosystem of good that can be leveraged. Another important network in the region is AVPN, with 600 members and growing, and Ms. Dini, who will come after me, will speak shortly about it, so you'll hear more about AVPN's work soon. But there are other prominent pooled resource networks in the region. Some names are Asia Philanthropy Circle, Institute of Philanthropy, Philanthropy Asia Alliance. Each of these vary in scope, focus areas, and mechanisms, but all share the mission of fostering collaboration across the philanthropic sector to amplify impact. And I know Dr. Glenda has talked about some of the networks that you belong to, which I know do incredible work. And the last one, long-term philanthropic support is needed if it is to bring lasting impact. And the key word there is long-term. The challenges that philanthropy is looking to tackle are complex, and it needs sustained support. Often, funders have limiting criteria that are time-restricted. We've had experience with a donor who was so impressed and satisfied with the impact of the program they supported, but could not proceed as their own internal rules prohibited funding past the second year. Yes, a philanthropic response to urgent needs is important, but the overarching aim of philanthropy is structural change. So sustained support through all phases of the recovery and all phases of the project is really essential for lasting impact. So I've talked briefly about the 5 elements to consider, but as we are in Asia, I must say a word about the potential of Asian philanthropy. You may be familiar with some of the wealth statistics in our region. According to Nikkei Asia, Asia is now home to more billionaires than the United States or Europe. We also see that the nascent state of philanthropy in Asia has meant that a unique Asian way of philanthropy has emerged. This builds upon a rich heritage of Asian cultures that deeply values charitable giving, inspired by faith and belief systems, as we see here, but also that values the importance of relationships and the role of government as an agent for social change. Bridgespan Group in 2023 reports that the continent's wealthy are ready to lean into philanthropy more. One poll of business leaders said 9 out of 10 reported that their intention to engage in more public-private partnerships for social good and to spend more to address environmental issues and challenges. So if they follow through on their intentions and match the level of philanthropic spending in the United States, as much as $701 billion per year could be unlocked. So as an Asian person working in philanthropy, I think it's a very exciting time for philanthropy in the region. And this region seriously has the capacity to drive solutions to the biggest challenges of our time. So there you go. Let me recap. Some thoughts for effective and strategic philanthropy in times of crisis. Number 1, relationships need to be in place to respond to urgent needs. Number 2, preparation for impact is crucial to be able to respond to crisis. Number 3, sometimes the best solutions are the ones that are simple, affordable, and get the job done. Number 4, collaboration is crucial to solve the complex issues of our time. Number 5, long-term philanthropic support is needed to bring lasting impact. So in this room today, we have funders, we have doers, we have connectors, we have people who give their time, their treasure, and their talents and their networks. I'm reminded by a quote by Winston Churchill who said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." So thank you very much for doing just that, for giving in different ways. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for this opportunity to be here. I wish all of you excellent discussions for the next 3 days. Thank you.